Hi there, this is Jacob Nash, and this is a review of Module 32 for AP Psychology, Storage and Retrieval. So, some review. We've talked about these parts of the brain, right? But now we're actually on something that's specifically about them. So the hippocampus, do you remember that? We said that I think I said before that at first it's in the hippocampus for short term, and then it goes to this cerebellum for long term. But what you need to know for this is that this is some review from Module 31 also. These processes are explicit memories. Remember, that's the ones that we're aware of. So like reading this, just remembering this. That's what the hippocampus processes. But the cerebellum processes are unaware memories. So remember, that's like learning to ride a bike. You don't really think about that, do you? And then remember, that's also called procedural. But anyways, basal ganglia. I just showed a picture of basal because that's what it made me think of. But it's a structure involved with motor development, which is an implicit or procedural memory. So that relates to the cerebellum. So do you remember what motor development is? If you don't, then maybe this will help you know what it is. So what's going on in that picture or video, GIF? Someone's moving, right? Moving around a lot to some crazy music. Guy UT. Well, that's what motor development means. It's moving, motor moving. So that's what the basal ganglia does. But a lot of our things that have to do with moving, we don't think about. That's why it's an implicit procedural memory that's processed by the cerebellum. All right, indelible memories. Might be saying that slightly wrong. Indelible memories. These are just ones that you can't forget. Now, and this is just like a funny example, but in some cases it may be something bad. But let's say that Jim Carrey went to a concert and saw this guy. So you might not know what this is or who this is. This is, even though they have a dress on, that's a man, and his name is John Fishman. And that's a whole nother story of why he has a dress on. You would have to know more about that band. But he, for certain songs, plays a vacuum. How do you play a vacuum? I don't know. You might want to look that up. But that might be an indelible memory. If you saw that, you'd be like, like you might think that's really strange. That audio on the last slide was, if you heard that drumming, that's him. That's John Fishman that drums in that. But that was a sped up version, anyways. Okay, so flashbulb memories. What are these? This is a clear memory of an emotionally significant moment. 9/11 news, for example. So many people that were around for 9/11, they can remember exactly where they were when that happened. So you don't need to know how old I am, but at least I can tell you that personally that was not something I was around for. And so anyways, but I know that some people that I've talked to say they remember exactly what it was like when they heard. Sometimes that can be the case I know that I have some flashbulb memories. One time, a couple years ago on July 9th, 2020, I'm a major date person, if you don't already know. I remember dates easily. But I happened to be riding through the city and I heard a noise like that. And I was like, someone like, what do you call it? Jackhammering into the interstate. Because it sounded so loud and it was at night and it was in a city. And then I saw a whole bunch of dust and I looked over to my left and I saw a Dodge Charger vertical So whoever was in that car, they were looking up at the sky and then smashed down. I mean, it fell down and went back horizontal like it was supposed to be. Uh, I think what had happened was, this is beside the point, but this is definitely a flashbulb memory. Someone was on the road above, you know how there can be bridges above, and their car rolled down the hill, and it crashed into a car that was driving on the interstate. And I think luckily those people were okay, but that was very intense. So that's a flashbulb memory for me. I can still picture it. But I mean, of course, it's a little bit easier for me to picture it because that was like 2.5 years ago. But you know, I have ones that are longer ago too. But anyways, what is long-term potentiation or LTP? So this is something we got to know. This is an increase in self-firing after stimulation. So something stimulates it and it goes. Don't really need to know the specifics on what that is, but you just need to know this is the basis for memory. So it allows for memory. That's what you need to know. LTP allows for memory, and it is the self-firing more due to stimulation. So in one experiment, mice that didn't have an enzyme needed for LTP couldn't find their way out of a maze. You'll never get out of this maze. So obviously LTP was needed for that. So that's a good example. All right, 3 R's. So this isn't, don't remember like, oh, these are the 3 R's. I'm just saying that because I didn't know what else to put as a title. So we got to know these 3 words though, but recall, recognition, relearning. Okay, so what is recall? This is a measure of memory, and fill in the blank questions can answer this. So what is a measure of memory? And then there's a blank. Recall. That is recall. Okay. Recognition. This is identifying previously learned things. So, oh, I know that's what that is. And then relearning is assesses time saved when relearning. That does not really make sense. It assesses times. I feel like maybe I was not. I don't know. Maybe I was tired when I typed that, but relearning, that's pretty straightforward. But when we relearn something, time is saved. Maybe that's what I was trying to say, because it's pretty. I think I've talked about this before. It seems like there's like a clear pathway that gets rediscovered, and we remember that thing again. Okay, so priming. So what comes next? This is exactly what priming is. We already talked about this. Anytime you see something like this, it's like a different colored screenshot. That's because it was talked about on a different video that I made. I think it was module 16. So remember, this is just our brain knows what will come next. So if you see 1, 2, 3, FO __, what do you think it is? 4. Walls of the cave, Karini, Gayuti, FO __. What do you think that is? Foam. So yeah, I don't think you knew that one. That's okay. What about this one? So yeah, just forget that. Don't get confused by that. That's just like a side note thing. No, that's a good example. These are good examples. This is an example, but an example that only applies to a very small portion of people in this country that would know what that is. Fill in the missing word. Red, blue, orange, yellow, grew. I didn't make this one. I forget the name of the person, Miss Piscini. She has good videos too. So, GR, you would think that's green, right? Plum, nectarine, pear, apple, grape. That's probably what it is, right? Okay. All right. What is mood congruent? Mood congruent. This is tendency to recall experiences that are consistent with one's current good or bad mood. So if it's a bad day, you might think, oh, yeah, that's like when this happened. So this picture includes someone right here. I don't need to say his name, but that is that man happens to be related to me, and he is who I think of for this. So he might be having a bad day. So let's say maybe he didn't get enough lettuce in his spring roll. Then he's gonna be like, oh, that's so annoying. And then he'd say, oh, you know, that's like when I went there in 1997 on Tuesday. So that's what I'm talking about. Like sometimes, depending on our mood, we might decide that we um, remember something that's like that. I know that this happens to me. If there's something bad that happened to me, then I sometimes just think of all the bad things, but maybe I don't think about them otherwise. That's mood congruent. All right, serial position effect. So we recall the first and last terms of a list better than the middle ones. So if you see these eight different words or whatever, these are song names. Song names that were performed at a concert that I went to in July. I've included a lot of things now in this video about that. That's that same guy with a dress on. It was that concert. That's what it was. Fish is the band, if you want to know. And you likely do not know any of these songs, and if you do, then you're cool. You're also cool if you don't. But anyways, if I told you to remember these names, and then maybe a couple days later, I'm like, all right, tell me those names, then you're going to probably say, well, I remember that it said, what was it? Big black furry creature from Mars. And I think the last ones were light and shine a light. That's probably what you'd say. You probably would not remember Ruby Waves or Beneath a Sea of Stars Part 1. You probably wouldn't. That is the serial position effect. The idea that we would probably remember the first and last ones. And that's true, isn't it? That's why it's important to chunk. Remember, we talked about that. We can chunk things so that you would, okay, study 1 and 2, study 3 and 4, study 5 and 6, study 7 and 8. All right, let's answer these questions. Create an example of the serial position effect. In a list of 20 songs, Early only remembers the name of the first and last couple. Okay. How do memory researchers explain successful recall of information? They've determined that when cells have increased firing due to LTP, this provides the basis for memory. This may help with recalling as it requires conscious awareness of what was learned at an earlier time. So that's how they explain it, by LTP and the idea that we need conscious awareness of what was learned at an earlier time for certain cases. The tendency to recall experiences that are consistent with one's mood is mood congruent. Remember the guy with the spring roll? And I'm telling you that example is very close, if not exact, to something. I'm just saying. What is the relationship between enzyme production and long-term potentiation in mice? Mice did not have the enzyme needed for LTP and could not learn their way out of maze. There you go. That's module 32. Thanks for watching.